Alright, let's talk a little bit about navigation inside of ZBrush. So ZBrush is different in everything that they do, and navigation is no different. So let's learn a little bit about navigation. If you go ahead and take your pen cursor and click and drag in here, or your mouse, and you click and drag in the open viewport here, you can see that you can rotate around your model. Okay, you can click up and drag around. So just get a little familiar with rotating around your model. Okay, once that feels okay to you, let's go ahead and hold down Alt and click in the open viewport, and that's going to pan our model around. So you can just move this all over. I'm still holding down Alt while I click and drag, then I can let go and my model will be stationary. So I can move, holding down Alt, let go, click in the viewport, and then I can rotate around. So I want to show you while you're rotating, in the middle of the rotation, if you hold down Shift, you can see my view just kind of snapped. You can see how it snapped to the left and to the right, or the front and to the back. Okay. That's going to let you go from a front view to a side view really quickly, from a side view to a back view very quickly. Now you can see we're in perspective mode and we've got a grid on here. So we can turn perspective off. Perspective sits right here, so you can click that. And now you have a orthographic view. So whenever I rotate around, click and drag in the open viewport, if I hold down Shift, it's going to snap to a view. So here's the front. And if I rotate around a little bit and hold down Shift, then it'll snap to a left view. Click and drag, hold down Shift, and it'll snap to a back. Click and drag down, and I'm going to the top of my model. So hold down Shift, and I've just snapped there. If I hold down Alt, click and drag up, you can see I can center that here. And if I want to, let's say I push my model off to the side. If I want to center my object in the center of the canvas, tap F, and that'll frame your object. Okay. So I'm going to rotate back around to something that should be a front view. I'm going to turn perspective back on. And then I also want us to take a look at the fact that we have a 3D grid turned on. And we can turn that grid on and off by hitting the floor. Now you'll notice if you hover your cursor over these icons here, you can see that there's some hotkeys for this. So turning on and off the ground plane is Shift P. So I can turn that on and off with the hotkey. In perspective, if you hover it over here, hotkey P. So I can turn on and off perspective real easily by hitting those. Okay, so you're going to get a feel for navigating around, rotating your model around, and holding down Alt and clicking to pan. Now the zoom is the part that everybody has trouble with. So let's do this exactly the same way that we did for panning. Hold down Alt, click and drag in your viewport. So you're used to this by now. Now while you're moving around, let go of Alt, and it'll snap into a zoom in and out mode. Now I'm taking my pen cursor and moving it up and down, and you can see how that's going to zoom in and zoom out. So again, to invoke that, just hold down Alt, tap, click and drag in the viewport like this, and then I usually just kind of do this hopping motion and then let go of Alt, and it goes and turns into a zoom in and zoom out. I know this is going to feel very odd and maybe counterintuitive at first, but before you know it, you'll get used to this way of navigating, and it lets you travel around your model really quickly. And you won't even really notice. You just kind of tap and drag up and down real quick. So I can go straight into zooming and rotating and panning real quickly. It'll take you a while to get used to this. but after you get used to it, you can kind of understand why they've set things up the way that they have. One more thing to mention is if I zoom in really far and my model takes up a lot of my canvas, so if I hold on Alt, click and drag, and then let go of Alt to zoom in, let's say my model takes up all my canvas. All this navigation that we were doing needs to happen in some kind of open space for our viewport. So what do you do whenever the model gets filled up all the way? This would happen if you're doing, sculpting on an eye or something. You're getting really close in on your model and you want to really work on some of the detail. Well, you can see we've got this border that goes all the way around the program here. And basically anything inside this little border here going across is considered open viewport. So I can hold down Alt and click and drag in here, and that'll pan around. I can click and drag in here, and that's going to rotate my model. And I can hold down Alt and click and drag up and down and then let go of Alt, and that's going to turn into zoom in and zoom out. So once you get your model zoomed out a little bit like that, then you can get back to your normal navigation. Or if you just want to get out of this, you can just tap F, and that's going to frame up the model here in the center of the frame. And here's something that I just recently found out, just kind of by accident. I kept doing it every now and then and wasn't sure how I was doing it. But if you hold down Shift and you click and drag left and right, it doesn't look like it's going to do anything, but as soon as you let go of Shift while you're doing this motion, you can see that if I drag left or right, I can cause my screen to barrel roll. So this becomes important whenever you need to kind of change the orientation of something. Let's say you have an arm sticking out of this thing at an angle, and you want to have the arm seem flat across like this to do some straight lines. This is a way for you to kind of change the orientation of the screen. So again, for that, it's going to be kind of weird to get back out of that. Hold down Shift, click and drag left and right, and I'm still holding down Shift. As soon as I let go, it's going to turn it into this mode that I can kind of do this barrel roll motion. One more thing to mention about the navigation. You can see that a lot of the things that we've done here with the mouse or the pen can actually be done with these icons that we have over here. So if we click the frame button, that's going to frame. If we click and drag on this icon here, that's going to move. If we click and drag up and down on the scale, that's going to zoom. And if we click and drag here, it's going to allow us to rotate. So if you're really struggling with the navigation inside of ZBrush for the first time using it, to get through the class, you might want to maybe use some of these tools over here to just position yourself and get yourself scaling and rotating. But after you get done with the first class, I really recommend that you spend about a good 5 to 10 minutes of just working on these navigation skills. Like I said, it's very odd at first, but as soon as you learn how to navigate inside of here, you'll just be flying around the canvas and you'll be snapping to different views and turning on and off perspective and turning on and off the grid, and it'll be kind of just secondary. You won't be thinking about this stuff, and it'll really help you to concentrate on just the sculpting aspect of things.